And unfortunately, things have changed. And because of, again, integration of the 1970s and now 50 years of integration, people tend, some people in the country recognize each other as individuals. And interracial dating has skyrocketed, and interracial marriage has skyrocketed in the United States. And there are groups that no longer want to be defined as black or white, but mixed race. But that is not a construct in this country that's accepted. You are either black or you're white. You have to pick a team. You can't be Switzerland. And to answer your question, it hadn't changed much. And that's just how it is. And it's difficult for a lot of people, particularly um, the white side of a family that has merged with a black family and for the first time in their lives see the actual treatment of black people now that they are in association with black people.
All right. I think that argument needs to also be actually be expanded upon because first, I want it to be established whether or not what we are referring to as race or races is actually scientifically proven.
It's not.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So it means it's actually a social construct. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. If that is a problem, now how do we get entangled into this social stratification that we must remain there? Because now we identify ourselves based on how somebody wants to be called or want to call us. A good example would be I did an interview with a historian a couple of days ago relating to the mass shooting in Buffalo. Because
Hmm.
the guy, the 18 years old boy who went there and shoot people, I want to believe that the system will refer to him as a white supremacist. And I said, well, um, I don't want to call him a white supremacy. I want to call him who he is because he terrorized people. And according to the law, according to the common vocabulary, when you terrorize people, you are a terrorist. But I found out that if you go online, you go to BBC, CNN, all the major news outlet, you will not see him be described as a terrorist. So the question really is, are we limited to how we can describe people based on really what they do, or it's not an intellectual concept? So I don't think most of the things we do should barely be a hypothesis. These things really are there. The people that died, those 10 people really happened. So it is not a theory. The action that took place that day really did happen. There are descriptions for it. We know that is terror. The guy is a terrorist. If we accept that he is a terrorist, then the argument is completely different now because as a terrorist, you are not really defending any person. You are you are against a society. You are against human civilization. You are against a common way of living as human beings. But if we describe you as a racist now, it means we are separating you from one group, we are adding you to another group, which means you are defending a value. But how can we look at all this horror and consider the people operating based on the defense of a value? That is what I'm beginning to find difficult to understand if we classify people based on races. Because now we want to call ourselves black. Fine. I want to take it to a certain extent. But do we really think, I mean, even among us Africa, do we really think that this color that we are calling ourselves describe us as who we really are? Do you think it is? Mr. Jeffrey, I'm asking you the question. Do you think calling yourself black actually describe who you are?
No, I don't think it describes who you are. I think what it is the easiest form to identify a person, and that's what I'm saying about in America in a use of identifying people. You can classify them with words, and sometimes those words, as relates to black people, have negative connotations. Now, as you just said, when you look at the story about Buffalo and the young man is featured on the BBC or CNN, or even here, Fox News, a very conservative news outlet, he is referred to as a boy, which to me gives indication that somehow he's not responsible for his conduct. He is a terrorist, as you had said. He's no different than how we fear Muslim terrorists in this country, or what they would describe as Middle Eastern terrorists. They don't describe them as boys; they describe them as terrorists. They create horror, trauma for society around them. So I think what you said is right. He should be labeled as a terrorist because that's who he is. He is a domestic terrorist who is based in racist and bigoted thought and action. And when we define people with one word, and if that one word is inclusive to being negative, then psychologically you have a greater advantage over one group of people than another.
Thank you so much for that. Now, another thing I'm really finding very interesting in your podcast, because I've listened to a couple of them before I started to talk to you, and also the conversation I'm having with you, is the fact that it's a feeling that I'm having that I'm bringing forward to you. I'm going to ask you as a question. Is that I think that we can reframe our mind. I think we can change our mind. I think we as a people do have the possibility of re-educating ourselves from the frame somebody has given to us so that we can think differently. And of course, that has some consequences. I know that. Anyway, before we go there, do you think that with all the instruments that we have today, intellectual, artistic, do you think we really can? Do you want to support me that we can change our mind? Please expand on that.
Yeah, I think we can change our minds. I think I give it, like I said, you go back to the 70s and you can see the mindset change of this country. People are not, they don't formulate the same ideas about racial groups today that they had in the 70s. So their minds have changed. They developed, they've matured, they've grown. That's happened in the whole country. As it relates to the Black populace, I think there was more connectivity in the civil rights movement than it is here. But I do think that most Black people do recognize that if Black people change their minds and are more about self-help and individual achievement, then it helps the community. If it helps one community, then it helps several communities. And those communities grow into cities. And those cities grow into states. So changing of the mind and development of the mind, the education process is possible. The only negative I put to it is you have to decide you want better, and you have to decide you want better collectively. And you're never going to get 100%. But like I said, during the civil rights movement, you didn't have 100% Black participation in the movement. You probably had about 75%. But look what you gained when you had somewhat of a united front in a common struggle with a social construct that no matter what I do socially, economically, I'm denied opportunity based on how I'm defined as a human being. So I know I'm going a long way with it, but I don't know if you listened to my last podcast, California named for a Black queen.
I did.
My point of that was the wealthiest state and the most popular state in the United States of America is named after a Black female, a Black queen. So you can have positive, reinforced imagery of Black people and Black success. And through Black success, the whole populace rises. And that's what I'm saying to you. Unfortunately, we tend, as human beings, we tend to follow leaders, as opposed to all of us raising ourselves up individually. We follow individuals who instruct us to rise. Example would be ministers or preachers. I don't know how strong they are in Africa, but in America, they wield a lot of power.